What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Koppai Podcast, episode 79. I am one of your hosts, Kaz Risk, joined alongside Mr. Koppai himself, Zach Risk.
What did you say? What did you say?
I said I'm joined alongside Mr. That's not, dude. I'm so disappointed that you didn't. That I didn't say joined by Mr. Koppai himself, Zach Risk, and you went Fus Roda.
That was one of my thoughts. I was
What was the
possibly gonna
thing
do that
you
too.
did? What was that?
That awkward from Oblivion, that quest where the guy's like, he's running around in circles doing that. It's so
Is
awkward.
it the?
Or-
I want to read up.
Have you heard of the High Elves?
In case you haven't been able to tell through the thumbnail, through the title, through the description, through the hints that we gave in all of our previous episodes, today's episode is all about Skyrim VR, The Elder Scrolls V, the hit of 2011 and 2012 and 2013 and 14 and 15 and 16, and now the hit of 2017, both on the Nintendo Switch and on VR. We're going to be talking about the VR version today, but I've been hearing tons of great things about the Switch version, that having Skyrim portably is awesome. And
honestly, I didn't want to open the show by going, boost. Like, I considered that doing that into the mic might be a little bit to the ears.
Yeah, I'm adjusting. I'm adjusting audio levels actually right now. So yeah, but Foos, right into it. Which okay. I was gonna say something about Foos in the game and all that, but we'll get to the discussion of Skyrim VR in a moment. But yeah, so today's episode is all about it, and I'm actually super inspired. I sent a jokey message to you the other day that's like, Koppai Gaming from now on is all Elder Scrolls, because it's so awesome to be back in this game, and I want to just re-dig into the lore and the history of some of these places. And I've always been really fascinated. What made me think of it is you doing the I've always been fascinated with the Wabbajack and that Daedric Prince of Mischief or something, kind of like the Loki of Elder Scrolls. Yeah. How he's always shape-shifting and stuff. I need to find a good old Elder Scrolls book. I've been collecting every book in the game, so one day I can just sit down and read them all. Although
I've read a few.
I read one.
Like it.
I think I'm a little disappointed. Someone was on a live stream or something where they're yeah, you can read the books in VR and you can just pick them up and be flipping through them, and they're held up still like they are in the original menu, and you have to kind of lean in and read through them and stuff. But it's not like it's sitting in your lap or something, which maybe they'll add that in later. I feel like this is gonna be, just like with Skyrim in the past, it's gonna be one of those games where they are continuously adding updates and maybe one day add mod support. And just kind of curate certain mods to make it so they're only VR compatible.
Yeah,
and all
possibly.
Yeah. So, but anyway, this is our Skyrim VR discussion. We're not going to get into a full-on review. We've only had the game since Thursday night, and we're recording this on Sunday. So by the time you listen to this, our impressions are somewhat light, but we have a pretty good idea of what Skyrim in VR feels like. How the graphics are, how the sound and music and all of that is. Playing it, Zach, you've tried both DualShock and Move controllers.
Yeah,
I've tried exclusively with the DualShock, although I did play a little bit with the DualShock while standing up, which made me feel like one of those guys at E3 where they're standing on the stage and they have the spotlight on them from behind and they're I'm playing a game on stage. And so we have a good idea of the playability and then just the overall, what's our entertainment factor? Are we satisfied with Skyrim in VR? And I think we would both say, yeesh.
Yeah,
it's
definitely
awesome.
Yeah.
And so I will say this though, and I've seen a few posts of it on Reddit. I wasn't at first pumped. As a matter of fact, my initial impressions were actually pretty. I was like, yeah, it's a fine gimmick. I'll pop into it every now and then, but I'm not going to be playing through it. All right, I kind of want to go back to the PC version almost. I just love Skyrim so much, and we'll get into this in our discussion, but there was a pivotal moment. I posted about it on Reddit, actually. I want to see if it's been getting any upvotes. I got 4 new messages. It's called My Skyrim I'm in Love, or My PSVR I'm in Love moment. I got 20 upvotes so far. And I saw a similar post on Reddit where someone was they had that moment where they were just aha, this is why Skyrim in VR works.
I actually pulled a quote from somebody that I thought it kind of what you were just saying really reminded me of, that and I might maybe read this later on when we get into our discussion of our impressions, but and that seems to be, and then my experience was kind of similar. It's you know, I try to kind of temper my expectations a little bit
Yeah.
for it, because it's of course I played a little bit of Resident Evil 7 and played a lot of the VR games, and you have to kind of keep in mind that it's going to be a little bit blurry, maybe a little bit you know different, some things that have to be taken into consideration with the VR experience, and a little bit like Resident Evil 7, how it's not as open world. I was a little concerned about how that would work.
Yeah.
And just the one of the main comments that this person kind of brought up is that having replayed the intro scene so many different times, like if you played Skyrim like we have,
Yeah.
if you played it so many times, it's kind of this like almost like repetitiveness that you don't know maybe if you want to keep going with it, or maybe it's and
that's
just
why I'm so
even
nervous
more
about you with your
disappointing
Dead is Dead thing. I'm like, dude,
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you want to go through the intro again.
Yeah, it's been an interesting whole experience with how, it's been years and years since the game came out. We've had like games like Witcher 3, Fallout 4, Zelda came out and kind of revolutionized open world games recently, and just there's been a lot of really big breakthroughs in open world games, and how fluidity and animation and storytelling and things like that, even Bethesda themselves have just improved and innovated a lot since
Yeah.
Skyrim came out. But it's really crazy how it does. Like a lot of the reviews bring up the point that it makes this 6-year-old game fresh again.
Yep.
And I really feel that it does do that in a lot of ways, and it's really, really, really awesome that they can bring it. And I think that what it does in a lot of ways is set the bar for VR in a way that tells people like, I've been seeing a lot of comments, for instance, about people. Some people have been falling asleep, literally falling asleep in the game, and just to test it out. Yeah, they're playing like 6+ hours in straight, and so it's telling people. There's been a lot of talk about people how long they'll spend in a VR game in that experience. An hour at the most or something. Headaches, and this is kind of really dispelling those concerns and myths about, I think, that a lot of people weren't understanding entirely. It's like, no, people are willing to spend a lot of time in virtual reality if the game is built in that sort of way. And I think that Skyrim it's really cool to see Bethesda get on it and to kind of show what VR is capable of.
Yeah.
And it makes me excited to see in the future. We were kind of talking a little bit about, like, it makes us want to go back to Fallout 4.
Elder Scrolls Online too. It makes you really want to get back in that. Like,
now that would be awesome, like an awesome VR game, because of just we need more like multiplayer, like massive online, arenas to play, like something like PUBG or anything like that. Would be really awesome in VR. Just because
that's why Windlands 2 is so exciting, because it's like we can just go swing around in VR together. Like, that sounds incredible. And Rigs was pretty fun too, but it's just so high paced and competitive that we don't really get a time. Like, it'd be nice if there's a Rigs lobby where you could just fly around together or something.
Yeah, something that's a little bit more like, for one, like really open, really grand, and then also a little bit more like chill and not
No Man's Sky.
Like that. Yeah, something that No Man's Sky really needs to get a VR update.
That would turn that ship around if they could come out with like a huge VR update and be like, it's free with PlayStation Plus or something.
And you think about like how we were just commenting about how it makes Skyrim, a 6-year-old game, really fresh again. Yeah. And if you think about No Man's Sky, which is not even as old as Skyrim, and they've done all these new innovations to it to make it fresher and have some multiplayer aspects, I think that it would make that game way more fresh, and to go and see a whole bunch of, you never know when you land on a planet, like what creature you'll be able to find, and you can see it up close, in 3D and everything, and all these life forms and plants, and you might feel a little bit more of like a biologist and all that sort of thing, investigating. A little off topic.
No. I mean, it's a good way to start off the whole review discussion of Skyrim VR. Is that like you're saying, it sets the new standard for VR and what you can do with it. Like, it. I mean, I think with the Game Informer review, like I kind of have pulled up here as kind of a reference point for what the criticisms they have, so we can kind of compare and contrast off that. And they, and along with almost every other critic of the game, way back to like E3 when they had early impressions, is that the game doesn't look the best in a lot of ways. I think I will say this, though, with that caveat, indoor dungeons, indoor places, caverns and caves actually do look really awesome. I think that would look on par with what you'd expect out of the Batcave in Batman Arkham VR.
Totally.
Or probably Resident Evil. I haven't played Resident Evil yet. But, it's on par with that, where it's not having to render as much, and just, the kind of immersion of being in this dark cave. You kind of have a little bit of a, what is it? The disbelief sort of thing, like suspension of disbelief or whatever. But that being said, it sets the bar so now people can take this kind of formula and improve on it even more, or maybe make the world smaller. Like they had to make it full on Skyrim if they wanted to sell it for $60. But that doesn't stop someone from taking this kind of open world concept and maybe bringing it in a little bit, and so they can boost the graphics a little bit and refining on it. But you also look at, Uncharted 1 on the PlayStation 3 to Uncharted 3 on the PlayStation 3, or The Last of Us, like how much they're able to push out of hardware after they get at least one run at it. And I think they're going to be able to do that with VR now, that, Skyrim VR is the first kind of huge, massive open world for VR. Yeah. Let's take that formula from there. When Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, let's have a separate, VR version of it that pushes the boundaries,
Yeah, well, and I think, take Nintendo's formula, for example, of the new 3DS and that line. You could totally have something come out like Fallout 4 that's exclusive for the PlayStation Pro that works with the PlayStation VR sort of thing. You know what I'm talking about? I'm really considering eventually getting a Vive myself to get, probably Skyrim, because there's a mod to use it with,
or
a
Fallout.
Vive or an Oculus, or all these games. But I'm talking about just the improvement overall of every VR game. In that respect, if you got it on, the better graphics card, the Vive, I believe, is, a little bit better visually than the PSVR. Yeah. And then also with my graphics powering Skyrim, I could probably have, all the mods enabled, and, so I could do a whole bunch more with that. But with Skyrim, I don't know, just, definitely sets this bar. There's the cool thing about the dungeons and everything is that I was thinking a little bit about Oblivion, because I was trying to go in there with a little bit of context about what if they would have released a remaster of Oblivion, for example, or Morrowind, or done something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of going into these different locations and stuff, what's really cool about Skyrim is that a whole bunch of different designers made the dungeons. And so with Oblivion and Morrowind, you'd go into these places and they'd start to kind of look a lot the same. And what I've noticed already, just going to a couple different places, just the Bleak Falls Barrow, that first place that you visit, and then I've been to Ivarstead is the second place.
Oh, you did go there.
Yeah, and I went through the little haunted place, and I just cleared that area.
Okay, I haven't been there yet, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But you go in there and you can tell that there's just a different designer that they had. It was almost like Mario levels in a way, where there's creative differences, and it was just we were talking about a little bit on Facebook, the moments where slicers and the little traps down in the dungeons you have to avoid. In VR, it's a whole other level to do some of that stuff.
There was one situation where you're in. Let's just use Bleak Falls as kind of a template for discussion. First of all, I just have to share this moment. So as I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of the beginning, likely because of what you said. I've been in Helgen a million times. I've been decapitated a million times. The dragon comes down. You have jump through this hole. This is how you jump. It's this very tutorial. Hold your hand, which makes the payoff of leaving so much more incredible. Of you go out and it's okay, you can go wherever now. See, I'm gonna go to Riverwood, but you can go wherever. And I get to Bleak Falls finally, and I walk in, and I actually got a little sidetracked before I went to Bleak Falls. I went to a place, and I'm we do the whole role playing thing where we have our character, and my guy's kind of thievy, and he's a bounty hunter. So I went to the inn. I'm give me. Where's some work around here, huh? Give me some work. And they're well, there's a bounty on the people over in this bandit camp. So I went to a bandit camp near Whiterun to start off the game, and I found this, the ritual stone, which allows you to reanimate a corpse once a day. And it just kind of pushes out this big power around you, and just any dead bodies nearby get resurrected to fight for you. And so I got that before I went to Bleak Falls, and I went to Bleak Falls, and I walk in, and it's so, like, I don't know if this is a VR thing, or maybe I'm just not remembering it right, or maybe I had, like, some HDR effects, or, you know, I had, like, all sorts of mods when I played on PC. But it's so dark in some areas, and I think it's just the VR being fuzzy and stuff, and then just naturally being shadows. And I turned down the brightness a little bit because I hear that helps the graphic power overall. And so I walk into Bleak Falls. It's dark. You see at the very end of the room, like everyone knows, there's the two bandits talking, and they're by the campfire, and they're just hanging out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to snipe these two guys with my bow and arrow, but let me real quick. There's like a dead skeever right by me, and I use my power for the first time, and in VR... and with the headset around you, it is just poof. This green glowing, just powerful light surrounds my entire vision, and then it surrounds and fills up all of the shadows of the tunnel and the Bleak Falls, and it's just completely immersive light around you. And then one by one, these dead bodies start glowing blue and rising up like White Walkers. And it's just, I mean, and there was dead bodies in that room I didn't even know were there, like skeevers and bandits in the far corners, like all these bodies rise up. Wow. And I'm like, attack. And they just charge to these two bandits. I mean, it was the most, like, probably the coolest moment, like, in Skyrim overall, and just the fact that it was in VR was just crazy. Yeah. Because of that depth and scale. Like, that's the one thing that both you and I would have to emphasize more than anything else. Like, if you're wondering, because I think a lot of people are wondering this holiday season, should they pick up Skyrim on Switch if they want to re-pick it up, or should they pick it up on VR? Like, if they're going to re-buy the game this holiday season, where should they buy it? And, you know, I can't speak to the Switch version. We kind of chose to put our eggs in the VR basket. But I can't imagine, you know, I would imagine you're playing it on the Switch, and even though you can take it on the go, it's still going to feel like Skyrim, just with a Switch controller and on the go. Like, it'll be a convenience thing. But this reimagines Skyrim with the VR headset, the move controllers, being able to aim with your head and look around, and you haven't played Skyrim now until you've stood like in Whiterun underneath Dragon's Reach, and you're just looking up at the scale. Or I mean, I don't know if you fought a dragon yet.
Yeah,
but, okay. But yeah, fighting a dragon.
I mean, you kind of have to. Thankfully, it kind of forces you right away, so you at least see the scope of one, and so it's the Helgen attack. But I have fought the one because I've gone like to Ivarstead, so I did the West Watchtower, the dragon, and everything.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, you haven't played Skyrim now until you've seen a dragon up close in VR, and like it was the craziest thing to have that one attack, and it just flies overhead and flames come down, and like you literally duck your head because you're so immersed. Like, when's the last time you ducked your head while playing Skyrim on a PC or on a Switch? Like, you just don't have that level of immersion. But like, it's not like you look back on the footage and it's silly. Like, why did I duck my head? Like, what would that do to help? But it's just so like real in the moment that you're just like, crap, flames, duck and cover, dodge, you know, like just get to cover, get to safety, hide, you know, it's just awesome. And so I had that moment in Bleak Falls, and like you said, you had that moment where the slicers are going back and forth. For those of you that don't know, you may remember those hallways where there's like axes kind of swinging back and forth. And
there's a whole bunch of switches that you might step on. Like, for example, you were telling me the story about how one of the Draugr, or however you pronounce it, they stepped on it, and then a whole bunch of them got trapped.
I was running in Bleak Falls once again, and was just getting severely outnumbered by all these Draugr, the kind of White Walker people running around. Mm-hmm. And I knew there was that switch back there that if you step on the switch, it pulls a gate closed, and it's all spiky. And so I ran and jumped over it in VR, and then turned around, and they were all chasing me, and they all hit it. And the gate swung, smacked them, and they all just plowed towards my body and like flew towards me, went over my head and around me. And just being in VR, I'm like ducking, like, oh no, like they're smacking around me. Like, it makes the most casual. Okay, I'm going to Bleak Falls. I'm killing a few Draugr. I'm walking down. Okay, I've done this a few times. It makes just like every encounter like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, because it's just all around you. And the other crazy thing with VR that in other games, maybe it makes me excited to play Resident Evil. There's that peripheral vision sort of thing where it's just like, you know, I was in just like a tiny little catacomb corridor area, and a Draugr walked up from just beside me, and it's just like, like something's there. Where on a TV, you're either playing third person, so you don't have that same scare, or whatever the case may be. It's just there's just so much more to see and get immersed in. And I love how you're locked to first person. Like, it sucks you can't see your character, but it's cool that you're, confined to that view.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's
well, and there's moments like where, for example, I went to Riverwood really early on in the game. There's a little quest about what's his name, like Fendal and Sven, and this girl, and he wants like the letters,
Camilla or something.
Camilla. I couldn't find Fendal or whoever, the elf guy, and so I go to his house and like break in, and I'm like sneaking around in his house. Nobody's home. And I'm like starting to steal some of his stuff on his table. He's got a whole bunch of potions and cool food and everything. And every like few seconds, I'm like looking over my shoulder, like over to the door. Like make sure that he's not there and stuff. I'm like, I'm doing things that really I'd probably do, I guess, with a mouse. But the way I'm able to do it so much more quickly and feel much more natural, and like I'm actually in the space. To see like things like the gate of Whiterun and like you were mentioning Dragon's Reach, the scope of that, certain doorways and signs and things that you just never really thought of the scope of, are suddenly like, oh wow, I had never realized.
A cave bear or like a saber-toothed tiger coming at you. There was a tiger that jumped at me that like literally made me like my chest like clench, and I was like I was hiding in some sort of cave, and like it saw me, and I was running, and I found like a little waterfall to hide under, and it was like a scary movie. I'm like hiding in the waters, running over my face, and I'm just crying like, please just go away. And then this tiger just jumps and fills up my entire vision. Like, if you were playing with a TV, you just wouldn't have that same reaction where your TV fills up with fur all of a sudden. It's like, it's different when teeth are literally going into your eyes and you're like, crap, this is what it feels like to die. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah, I rode by like a troll, and the thing is I'm still doing my, like, we both went in, you kind of mentioned we were doing a little bit of role playing, and we both went in initially doing the Dead is Dead challenge. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that I haven't died at all yet on my main quest. The only time I did die was when I was testing the move controller teleportation out in the Sleeping Giant Inn. And for some reason, I guess there's even a bug that Bethesda has acknowledged, that the sheathing of your weapons is kind of funky. And I don't know, I was trying all these things out and trying to put this kettle on
you told me about this.
On top of this girl's head and like just cover it, because somebody had said that's fun to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm like trying to put things on people's heads, and accidentally poked her, and she's like, hey, and starts fighting. So I just start slashing everybody, and they all start slashing at me. So it was kind of a timeout moment. But in terms of my like actual questing, there's been some super intense moments. I did move the because we've always kind of done this Dead is Dead in like a lower difficulty, because there's a thing of when you go to the legendary, really all it's doing is making it so it takes a ridiculous amount of hits to take someone down, and I don't know, it's a little bit unrealistic. So I think that this adept difficulty has been a pretty moderate, like what would you say, compromise between.
Yeah, it's fair. It's
between the difficulties. Yeah,
it's what you'd expect. I mean, I think there's always like a difficulty, and I don't like these words of adept, novice, mastery, legend. I like normal, and I love like when a game does a description like, okay, this is the way we want it to be played. Like, I think Doom does that or something, where it's like, this is where you want a moderate challenge in the story. And this difficulty is if you want to be like a crazy little man, and I think there's always like a certain difficulty where it's like, if you get hit in the head with an arrow, it does 30 damage. If you hit an enemy in the head with an arrow, it does 30 damage. Like legendary, it would do 15 damage to them, and you'd get 60 damage to your head. Like, there's like that kind of, what would it be, like what kind of graph, or like a Venn diagram or something, where this is the sweet spot in the middle where it's fair on both sides. And I think Adept is about that.
Yeah, I think it's got a little bit extra challenge. I think maybe you take a little bit more damage, so you got to be a little bit more skillful, but it's not, ridiculous.
And I'm wearing light armor all the time.
I had some moments like in this last dungeon that I was just in where I stepped on a couple of those traps, got a couple arrows in me. One time I hit the switch that one of those little mini gates, not as big as the one that hit those joggers that you had, but hit me, and I got like down to half health. So there's been some really crazy moments. The first time I switched up to Adept and went into Bleak Falls, I was being chased out the entire way by this jogger that was hitting me with this ice spell as I ran. And every time I'd look back, he was still behind me, like through from like the very bottom of that place all the way up through. And I was like, come on, man, like stop, like leave me alone. I ran out completely out of food. And then in moments like that is what I really love about Dead is Dead. And I kind of told myself that because you've kind of been scared for me, and we were both kind of wondering, like, what do we do if we die? We don't really want to start the whole game over.
Yeah.
And I kind of figure that if I do die, I'm going to try to go as far as I can without dying. I made it 10 hours or so far to 2 areas. And I want to switch over probably to Legendary if I do die. And then I'll just try to beat the whole game, like, in
That's
Legendary.
a good call. I may switch to Legendary.
Because I figure, what's the point of like trying to die minimally? I figure if I switch up to Legendary, it'll at least be like I beat the game in the Legendary.
Yeah, I think you've inspired me because I had a rule to myself that I was gonna write down every time I died and like the circumstances and what happened. And then I had an encounter that like was just super tough, and I died like 3 times back to back to back. Like I was just going at it a little bit differently each time, and it wasn't that I was being careless. It was just like, how do I tackle this? And so that kind of threw that out the window. And so now I really like the idea of being Legendary, because there was one encounter, I think it was maybe the one I died a few times, and it's always weird with spoilers because like it's been so long since we've played Skyrim, so it's kind of a spoiler. Like, oh, I don't remember that, but now I do. But we've also played it so much that I'm just gonna go ahead and say this tiny little thing. But I was in some sort of cave or dungeon, I don't know where it was, and whatever. I love how there's like always stories for these places, because whatever this place was at the end of the dungeon, the kind of big, this is what the people do here, is they had like a little arena almost of like bandits, and they would fight them against animals, like these wild animals. And there was cages where all the animals were hidden, and you could go and unlock all the cages if you wanted to free all the animals and make them attack the bandits. And if you solved it all right, you could make it so you didn't have to fight anyone. And for some reason, though, I don't know if there was like a glitch or something, but some of the animals were already dead. And so what I did was I released the saber-toothed tiger, and it ran out and started attacking the bandits, and it killed a few bandits, and then they killed the tiger. And then I sniped off a few, but then there's always that one kind of bandit that has the heavy armor on and the great sword and all of that. And a few times I tried to go toe-to-toe with them, but if they could even swing it just anywhere near me, I was dead. And so I tried that a few times, and finally I did it so stealthily and opened up all the gates and picked off everyone but him that then I went out into the hallway, waited 24 hours so I could use my resurrection power, went back into the room, and then just did my whoosh, and all of the animals and all of the old bandits arise, and they all go into the arena, and they all have their glowing blue eyes of Kaz, my Jumanji powers, and they just shred that guy. And then throughout the rest of the cave on my way out, there's a few more bandits straggling. I just have this army of undead people, and they're all moaning like, save me. Like, please just kill me now. But I mean, and I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, it was just the fact that I died a few times, but it was nice to just be able to be like, okay, I'm going to go back at it again. I'm going to go back at it again. And especially if I up it up to Legendary, you're going to just be like, what's the ideal strategy? And I may have to wait out in the hallway for 24 hours to get my powers back, and I may have to cook up something, but then you feel like you just really conquered it. So
yeah, what's crazy is kind of like how I was mentioning earlier with the Morrowind or doing Oblivion again, which I do actually wish. Like, I would love all the Elder Scrolls games that we could get, in VR. It'd be awesome, and I'd love for them to just remaster those games. But like I was kind of mentioning with how this game has the design of the dungeons is way more advanced than probably both Morrowind and Oblivion.
Yeah.
But there's some moments, it's kind of funny how it's 6 years old, so there's those times where it's like, this is kind of awkward, or this is maybe a little bit like, I don't know, old gen or something. It's last gen, and then there's a whole bunch of moments too where it's like, this is like surprisingly really advanced or really cool or really nice. Creative.
Any of the jank of 2011 Skyrim is covered up by the fact that it's VR. So you kind of just are like, all right, it's VR though.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's like Job Simulator almost. It's like Okay, that's silly, but it's because it's Skyrim VR. Like, it's an old game and it's in VR.
Yeah, it is made fresh, but I think they also do a lot of you know, things like the story is still kind of really good. They do some timeless sort of story arcs and ideas and creative things that are interesting and that you kind of want to, you know, find out what happens with. And there's some things that I haven't ever experienced in the game.
Yeah,
like
I just got my first taste of the Dragonborn DLC. Because I think it's like when you hit like a certain level, like there's kind of like an event that, like, you know, or
right.
What is it like? You know, like when you play Fallout, it's like, oh, like all of a sudden your radio goes off. Like, have you had the Dragonborn thing yet? Like, have that happen?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah, and it's just like a little tiny thing, you know, like just you know, it's not this, but it's like almost, it's the equivalent of a courier walking up and be like, hey, you got a letter. I mean,
right.
And yeah, and that happened. And it's just like, I haven't played the Dragonborn. I mean, I've played 300, 400, 500 hours into Skyrim over the course of mods and stuff, and have done Dead is Dead and have like a 10,000 view series on YouTube of the Jesus of Skyrim. Like, I've done the game so much in so many different ways. But for whatever reason, I think I've owned it since whenever it came out. I just never got around to the Dragonborn DLC. And so the event happened for it, like the thing that invited me to go participate in it. And, you know, I was reading up on it, and it's just like, or the quest description of like, okay, you need to go do this to start this mission. This is what the story's all about. And I'm like, man, that's going to be so awesome, because, I mean, you know, the teaser for it, the descriptor, or the, you know, premise of the Dragonborn DLC is there's another Dragonborn or something out there, and so you have to go find them. It's just like, what a cool, like, I've played Skyrim for 6 years, and there's another huge story out there to go explore.
Yeah,
to experience it in VR will be awesome. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what I like about the DLCs too is that those came out like in the year and up into after Skyrim came out. I don't know exactly when they ended. I think that it was maybe late 2012 when Dragonborn came out.
Was that the last one?
It was like, yeah, and maybe it was early 2013. I'm guessing that it all was out and finished with in 2012.
It was December 4th on Xbox 360, and then February 5th for Windows, and then February
of 2013.
Yeah. And then February 12th and 13th for USA and Europe on PlayStation 3. So Xbox 360 got it first, and then Windows got it second, and then PlayStation 3 got it third.
But I do feel like in those DLCs, I guess my point was basically that they kind of had time to develop the formula a bit. It's probably their most advanced work, you know, the best coding for everything, like the lessons learned for certain, you know, writing things and bugs. And I bet that it's probably a pretty impressive experience. And I only touched on the Dawn Guard DLC just barely.
I think I just went there and then I turned back around.
I know. I took some boat ride there or something and explored a little bit of the area, and then it was like, all right. But yeah, it's one of the things I wanted to mention was that I went through this latest dungeon in Iverstead that I don't think I'd ever actually completely finished, or maybe I had and just forgot at this point. But it gives you that little cleared thing, you know, after you've gone through a place, and it makes me really want to just finally with this one clear everything, and then finally be able to set the game down, have it, you know, be done in first reality. I feel that's
I've never got the platinum in it.
But I know that once you like clear everything, it's like Skyrim is cleared. It gives you like this whole like thing that you've cleared Skyrim. And I think that'd be kind of a cool way to end it all out, you know, after all these years and how much time I've spent. I think it's pretty crazy that I've already put over 10 hours into this VR version when I've spent near 1,000 hours in this game already throughout the time that it's been around. I don't know exactly how much time. It's like 400 hours on Steam, 400 hours on Xbox, and then it's like, it's ridiculous. So, and I feel like it's probably going to be another several hundred hours if I'm going to beat this game and go through all the DLC and everything.
Yeah.
It's really awesome though. I feel like it's what I've wanted VR for since I heard VR was, you know, in terms of modern day VR with Oculus and everything. It's one of the things when I got my Google Cardboard, I would like look up the videos on YouTube side by side of people trying out their Skyrim on getting it to work with mods on Oculus, and being like, wow, that'd be so insane to see.
Well, it's always the dream. 3D. Like I've been sharing those videos on Facebook of me fighting off against the dragons and stuff. Because I faced off against 2 dragons now with the kind of scripted one, and then I found another one. And I've shared both videos on YouTube or on Facebook just because, everyone knows Skyrim, so it's like something that people would care about to watch. And yet people are liking and commenting on, people that never like really comment on my other kind of nerdy things and stuff, like my video game posts and all that. Just because people are like, whoa, like they're watching the whole thing because they're like, this is crazy that this was in a VR environment, like, and they see my head ducking and moving and stuff. Like, it's just fascinating to watch. And I think, it's just always that dream. Everyone, when they play Skyrim in 2011, they want 2 things. They want to either play it with their friends, which now we have with the Elder Scrolls Online, which, I think that game is always going to be tainted because of its launch and kind of how it was, what was it? Oh, you had to be like in the different factions. You couldn't explore all the world, and there was kind of microtransactions, or no, it was the subscription fee stuff that was locking things and all that.
Yeah.
But now people love it, like people that do play it still. And so people always wanted to play Elder Scrolls with a friend, and I would assume before it was even a thing, but like you said, they were in virtual reality. They want to be in Skyrim, people posting articles and stuff. I think there was a contest once, like on Twitter, like some sweepstakes where it's like, send us pictures of places that look like Skyrim. And it's like, well, doesn't Skyrim look like these places? Because these are the real places, like what they're inspired by or something. But people like love that scenery and stuff. Like, oh, this winter night, it looks like Skyrim or something. Like, just always been a thing. And so, we can actually be here and be in that universe. And it's crazy to look up at the night sky and see like the moons and the planets and stuff. And it's just like, how many times do you just sit in Skyrim maybe people do, but like in the, PC version or Xbox version and just look up at the sky and just be like, this is awesome. Like just take it all in, or, be at the inn and listen to music. Like I've just been sitting there just like watching the bard play.
Yeah.
Like play another 5 coin.
Before we end out the show, I do kind of maybe want to read this person's little post real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I thought they summed it up really nice.
Real quick, we'll end out the show with this, but I do want to get obviously if you have VR, pick up Skyrim. It's definitely worth the $60. And if you do pick it up and you've played it and you're like, it's fine, I'm gonna maybe pick it up later. Really give it I think it's the Bleak Falls challenge, or the Bleak Falls guarantee.
And this might be the same post that you're referring to that you read as well.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's like get to Bleak Falls and like have that moment. And if you still don't like it after that, maybe it's just not for you. Also, I think it's important to say that you and I both play with like everything turned off, like no snap turning, no field of view and all that, like just completely smooth locomotive turning and all that. And the other thing I do want to say before we end out on this, because I'd like to end on Skyrim, is next week we're going to have our Game of the Year discussion, is our goal, going through the Game Award nominations and kind of giving our thoughts on that, and also doing a new announcement for Koppai next week, so be sure to tune into that. Maybe if you're new to the show, we never really said what we are. We're an all gaming podcast, and so next week we have some announcements to go with that, because then we'll be taking a little bit of a break after that, but we will be back, and so you're going to want to hear all those details next week. And then otherwise, just follow us on Twitter, at KazRisk, at Koppai Gaming, at ZachRisk, and then follow us on Facebook as well. But we'll have all that next week. But read out this story, and then we'll go play more Skyrim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this guy, their name is Drist999, I guess. And this is what they said. They said, I've been extremely hyped for Skyrim VR since the announcement. Like many, I put hundreds of hours into the game over several consoles. Even though I told myself it's an older game and the graphics won't be that great, I still imagined myself being in a crystal clear world whenever I thought about the game. Which, side note, I didn't think crystal clear world, but, maybe the graphics... it's kind of like when I went to the PS3 version and I got the Legendary for that, and I was like, I'm going to platinum this on PlayStation 3, and then I was like, no way, the frame rate's horrible, I can't do this.
This is the article I read, disappointment to awe. So go ahead.
Yeah. My first impressions, honestly, were not great. The intro, while incredibly impressive in VR, gave me a huge sense of disappointment in how pixelated and low-res everything looked. That, combined with the initial learning curve of the Move controllers, made it not a fun experience. I couldn't figure out if I actually wanted to continue playing in VR, or if it was only because Reddit was telling me to. I'm a slave to the hive mind. I took a quick motion sickness break shortly after getting the River Run. I picked it up back up an hour later and started to the customary Bleakfall Barrows quest. Let me tell you, that one dungeon completely changed my view on this game.
Yep.
By the end of the quest, the move controllers were second nature. My eyes were adjusted to the low-res graphics, and combat was 1,000 times more fun than the original. I woke up this morning giddy, thinking about exploring the world and what class I wanted to start my VR experience with. And then the too long didn't read. Don't feel too bad if you're disappointed with the graphics. It can be a immersion killer at first, but give it a chance. And this is kind of, I felt that summed it up really nicely, because I kind of had that PS3 kind of moment where I was like, I don't know. It's a little bit, I was going in expecting it to be low. And then and I think part of it was that we've experienced that beginning intro scene so much. Another thing is I don't think they showcased the graphics of the game very well in that intro sequence, especially the part with all the hay and you're getting decapitated sort of thing. I feel like they could have. There's
more
even
the character
beauty
creator.
in
I'm
that
leaning
game.
in to get the details right. And the only thing I will say about the graphics, I think it's good that we're really, not downplaying them, but really set your expectations. Like, I heard that the graphics were bad, and I went into it thinking the graphics were going to be bad, and they kind of met that expectation, if not a little bit lower. And, I don't want to say, they're super, super bad. Like, it's still, there's glorious moments and stuff, but really just prepare that so you don't feel disappointed when you go into it. The other thing I'll say, though, is with the graphics, the only thing I'd say that they're really, that it's a bummer part that would, lower my score, I guess, is there's a few moments where I'm an archer, so I do, the snipes and stuff, and sometimes it's really hard to see people's heads from far away, which, I guess it just kind of plays into the challenge of okay, I got to get closer if I want to aim right. You just kind of start to play into it. But that was my only thing where I'm like, I wish I could just see farther simply for this one reason. But yeah, go ahead, what you're saying.
Well, I was just going to say, it's really not about, I think that the point is, once you get back on, if you keep putting the headset on, playing the game over and over again, you really start getting used to it and not even really noticing the graphics anymore. I really am into the point where, I'm pretty used to it and finding that it's getting way more comfortable and not even as noticeable as time goes on, to where I'm finding myself feeling more immersed, and just less, it's not as noticeable.
Yeah.
The more you play and the more dungeons you go into and different areas and certain things, that I feel like there's certainly, like they had mentioned, there's an eye adjustment that happens, that you might initially feel a little bit like, whoa, and then once you start getting it back on, I feel that something happens where it starts looking better and better each time you put the headset on. And you start feeling, just a little bit more immersed every single time and a little bit more comfortable and everything. So it's definitely something that I would not just... definitely turn the settings so that there's not the little tunnel vision and there's not all that stuff. So,
is there a way to turn off? Maybe when you hit up on the right or on the right analog stick, it kind of juts your view a little bit. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's basically.
But my biggest disappointment with the game is, as far as that, I don't know an option to make it so I can look up and down with the right stick, because that's what I want to. I know that you can look left and right. You can
you can't do that in Windlands either. You can't.
I know, but that's what I want. Because
you're not getting
times
that.
where I'm looking down, and I'm hurting my neck or something, and it's I wish I could just give myself a little bit extra help by just pressing down. If I want to. But whatever, man.
I think that would just throw it off the whole thing sometimes.
That would, because I guess you could just keep looking up and then looking down and then with the thing and then looking up and
I don't know. The only reason they have left and right turned on, I think the only reason is just because they don't want you spinning in circles in your room, or if you're sitting down, you can't turn around all the way, but you can look up and down on your own. The one thing I really want, and I think it would be a simple patch in there, is when you view your inventory and you're putting on your outfit and you're doing all that, just add your character model there. When you're changing, I just want to see my guy when he's putting on his new outfits, or add if you get a house, add a mirror.
There's got to be, I mean, this is probably a convoluted way, roundabout sort of thing, but I mean, there is that place down in Riften or whatever where you get plastic surgery, and there's got to be a way to at least see your character again.
Yeah.
For temporarily. and I'm not sure how exactly it works in terms of.
I just want to see, like, I got this really cool new mask, and I want to see my Khajiit. Like, I just love being a Khajiit. And
I haven't gotten into any of the what is it called, like Hearthfire.
Yep, no, I haven't got to that at all either. So yeah, I haven't even touched any of the DLC.
If there's any way to look at yourself in that at all, but
is like a mirror in your house, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, is there some new items that we haven't seen?
But I mean, I would just think that there's not, because like it's like you said on Facebook, if you chop wood, like they don't even have the animation where it goes third person for that. Like it's, or I mean, you haven't figured this out yet because you haven't died. But when you die, normally in Skyrim, it does a kill cam, like where you fall down and it like zooms out and shows your body going all limp and dying. But if you die in VR, you die, you fall over, and things fade to black.
Yeah, that's I died in the inn when I was testing.
Yeah, you did. Feel, so yeah, it's just.
I just like woke up back in the chair because I'd been sitting there.
Yeah, it's just a bad dream. So.
Yeah,
it was long though. We wanted to stick to a half hour, so sorry about that. But it's Skyrim VR. I mean, we shared so much today, and I didn't even talk about my second dragon encounter or my journey to Iverstead or. Any of that, and there's probably stories that like you didn't get a share, and it's just like it's just man. I mean,
and we're still at so early in the game, haven't touched any of the DLC. There's so much, and I think that in VR, it's like the perfect way to go. And I've been kind of interestingly, I don't even think I've been like thinking I don't think it's because of VR coming out soon or anything, but I've just been missing. Skyrim, because I spent so long in that world that I was just like, man, it's a bummer that I'm just not in that world anymore. Like there's that I want to go, but then it's like I gotta wait for the VR version. I can't like go and play it on the PC because
are you not feeling inclined to go into Elder Scrolls Online at all?
No, well, not really. And the thing is like also you mentioned like it's making me want to play Fallout 4. I just feel that's gonna kind of spoil some of the things about Skyrim. Like when I go into play like Fallout 4, I'm going to start noticing all the things that it does so much better than Skyrim.
That's why I think Elder Scrolls Online would be nice, because it's such a different, like, that MMO experience. There's going to be the things where I'm going to be playing Elder Scrolls Online and be like, man, I wish everyone wasn't around me and I could just be like an isolated VR experience. And like I feel like they'd play off each other well, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely making me I need to test it out on my new PC graphics card and everything. So yeah.
Anyway, that concludes Koppai Podcast episode 79. We'll be back with our episode 80 special as we talk about the Game of the Year and Game Award nominees, as well as our special announcement of the future of Koppai Gaming and our little holiday break and what we have in store for Koppai 2018. We'll be back. Actually, that's gonna be cool. Episode 81 will be in 2018. Is when we'll be back, so that'll be kind of cool. The kind of 8-1, 1-8 play off each other. Yeah, that's
awesome.
So, man, and then Game of the Year discussion and new announcements, episode 80. It's as if we planned it all out. So anyway, we'll be back next time with Koppai Podcast. But until next time, go.